Israel has executed one person in its entire history. That was 1962. Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi war criminal. The Knesset has now voted to make execution the default punishment for Palestinians. Hanging within 90 days, simple majority, no unanimity required. Itamar Ben-Gvir celebrated with champagne, Noose-Pin on his lapel, bottle in his hand. He now decides who lives and who dies. The champagne was already flowing before the ink had dried. Minutes after Israel's parliament voted to pass a law making execution the default punishment for Palestinians convicted of deadly attacks, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir was already pouring drinks, grinning widely, with his noose-shaped lapel pin catching the light. The Knesset had just voted 62 to 48 in favour of the death penalty bill, a piece of legislation that Ben-Gvir had championed with the kind of fervour most politicians reserve for economic reform. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu voted yes in person, then sat motionless as the chamber erupted in cheers around him. Ben-Gvir brandished his bottle, for he had waited a long time for this moment. The legislation is blunt by design. It makes hanging the default punishment for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank convicted by military courts of carrying out deadly attacks classified as terrorism. Life imprisonment is permitted only under what the bill calls special circumstances. Executions are to be carried out within 90 days of sentencing, with a maximum extension of 180 days. Prisoners awaiting execution will be held in isolation, with no family visits, and legal consultations only by video link. The sentence can be handed down by a simple majority, with no requirement for prosecutorial request and no demand for judicial unanimity. The law also empowers Israeli criminal courts to impose the death penalty on anyone who intentionally kills to undermine the existence of the Israeli state. But the architecture of the bill is notably asymmetric. It creates, in the words of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, two parallel tracks, both designed to apply to Palestinians. The group filed a petition with Israel's Supreme Court within hours of the vote, seeking to block the law entirely. The international response was swift and, in diplomatic terms, unusually sharp. The European Union called it a clear regression. Britain, France, Germany, and Italy issued a joint statement expressing deep concern, warning the law risked undermining Israel's commitments concerning democratic principles. Germany said Berlin could not endorse the legislation and viewed it with great concern. However, Ben-Gvir directly pushed back against European criticism, framing the law as an assertion of Israeli sovereignty.
עשינו היסטוריה, מעתה תדע כל אם ביהודה ושומרון שאם הילד שלה יצא לרצוח, אחד דינו לגרדום. אני אומר לאנשי האיחוד האירופאי שהפעילו לחצים ומאיימים על מדינת ישראל, לא מפחדים, לא נכנעים. אנחנו במדינה שלנו, עם הריבונות שלנו, נגן על האזרחים שלנו, ומחבל שיוצא להרוג, שידע, הוא יעלה על הגרדום.
UN experts had already warned last month that the bill violated the right to life, removed judicial discretion, and that hanging itself constituted torture or cruel and degrading punishment under international law. Amnesty International called it discriminatory. The EU's diplomatic service said capital punishment breached the absolute prohibition on torture. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas condemned the law as a breach of international law. To understand why this law exists, you have to understand the man who made it happen and how someone like him arrived at the center of Israeli power. Itamar Ben-Gvir is, by most accounts, a spectacle. Disheveled, loud, perpetually unshaven, with his white yarmulke askew and his collar open. He has described hanging as one of the options for execution. alongside the electric chair, or what he called euthanasia, claiming some doctors had volunteered to assist. He has repeatedly worn a noose-shaped lapel pin to Parliament. He is not a man given to subtlety. He grew up in Mevasseret Zion, a suburb of Jerusalem, and as a teenager in the early 1990s began his political life as a follower of Rabbi Meir Kahane, an American-born extremist whose party Kach was eventually banned in Israel and designated a terrorist organization. When settler Baruch Goldstein massacred 29 Palestinians at a mosque in Hebron in 1994, Ben-Gvir called him a hero. Until recently, he kept Goldstein's portrait on his wall. In 1995, at age 18, he made national headlines by tearing the emblem off Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin's car during a period of fierce right-wing agitation against the Oslo peace accords. Rabin was assassinated by a Jewish extremist weeks later. Ben-Gvir was deemed too extreme even for the Israeli military, which exempted him from service that same year. In 2007, Ben-Gvir was convicted of inciting racial hatred and supporting a terrorist organization. He then became a lawyer defending violent settlers, including 2 teenagers accused of burning a Palestinian family alive in the village of Duma in 2015. Ben-Gvir entered the Knesset in 2021. His religious Zionist party won 14 of 120 seats in the 2022 elections, 10% of the vote, and delivered Netanyahu's coalition the majority it had been unable to secure for 3 consecutive elections. What makes this law particularly alarming to critics is not just what it does, but what it gives Ben-Gvir. Under its provisions, executions require sign-off from a chain of security officials, including the National Security Minister. That minister is Ben-Gvir. He now holds veto power over whether a convicted Palestinian lives or dies, a position that, as one opposition lawmaker put it, makes him the man who will decide who lives and who dies. Military officials and legal ministries had warned before the vote that the bill could breach international law and expose Israeli personnel to arrest abroad. Those warnings went unheeded. From the podium just before the vote, Ben-Gvir delivered his verdict on history.
From today onward, every terrorist shall know and the whole world shall know. He who takes life, the state of Israel will take his life. This justice needs to be seen and done, and starting tomorrow morning, with the help of the blessed God, it will be done.
Israel has executed one person since its founding, Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, in 1962. That record may not hold much longer. And the man with the bottle in his hand, the noose on his lapel, and the veto in his pocket is counting on it. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the man who had reportedly been killed in an Iranian missile strike in the early days of the ongoing war, has come back from the dead. And he cannot wait to kill the Palestinians.